to another week of the Update Live. I'm Noah.
I'm Aarika.
And we're going to get straight into the exciting news and enthralling news that we've had over this past week. Don't laugh at me.
I'm not laughing. Anyways, so first things first, we have an update on the current conflict in Sudan with the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF. So what's happening at the moment is the RSF, which is a powerful military force in Sudan, recently captured El Fasher, the last major stronghold of the National Army in Darfur, after an 18-month siege. After the takeover, multiple credible sources have reported mass killings, summary executions, and widespread abuses. For example, one report stated that at least 1,500 people were killed by the RSF in the past 3 days as civilians tried to flee.
Yeah. The humanitarian crisis is deepening. Famine conditions have been declared in El Fasher and another region with about 375,000 people in famine and millions facing extreme hunger. The National Sudanese government accused the RSF of war crimes and committing genocide, and it says that it will refuse to participate in peace talks if certain regional backers are involved. So usually we just kind of read off the news, but we're going to go for a little bit of a different thing this time. So we're going to talk a bit about why it matters.
Yeah.
So, Aarika, do you want to kick us off about why this actually matters?
Yeah, so why this matters is, first of all, this is a major geopolitical event. The RSF's consolidation of Darfur shifts power within Sudan, and it raises the possibility of de facto partition of the country and has regional implications all over Africa.
And so this means for like other countries who are perhaps facing similar situations, it could influence them to perhaps a militia group would start a takeover of the country, which is never a good thing because then it can start mass killings and then lead to genocide. On also why it matters so much, the scale of the humanitarian catastrophe. Is that what it says?
Catastrophe, yes.
Catastrophe, sorry. War crimes allegations. Catastrophe, war crimes, allegations, and famine makes this compelling topic for discussions. So, like, what happened when armed group overrun civilian areas and how the world responds or fails to. So, it poses serious questions about how we feel and what we're willing to do about stuff that's not on our soil. We can already see with other conflicts that are ongoing currently that what do people actually do and what will people actually be willing to do and what does this show people and how are they willing to act upon it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in conflicts it really does majorly depend on where the conflict is located, especially for the major Western powers. Don't you agree? Like, if it's happening in Europe, it's more of a priority than whether or not it's happening anywhere else.
Yeah, but I mean, we also saw that maybe not as much, because if you look at the Israel-Gaza conflict, there was also a lot of pressure on that. I would go to...
I feel like the Israel-Gaza conflict is because there's so much link to Europe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just going to say before, we can definitely see the impact in Europe because I'm sure everyone goes to Geneva often, and every Friday for the past, since the war started again, there was always a protest for peace. Yeah. So I can definitely see how there's definitely impacts on Europe with conflicts, but I don't see the same happening with Ukraine anymore. Are people just... I know that it's a different conflict.
I think this feels a bit wrong to say, but in my opinion, what's happened is people have gotten bored of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's also a thing about our news. I think it's more about us than about the entire community. I think the fact that our attention span is being so short due to social media being just short clips. So now, almost these big scale implications, they are kind of like left aside because we're like, oh, I want something new and exciting.
Yeah.
But should there also be such like backlash for Ukraine? Of course, because there's probably also genocide.
I mean, when it first started, there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of protests happening in Geneva. My mother went to one. But after a while, when it just continued and nothing new specifically was happening, as you said, people lost interest, and then the whole Israel-Gaza thing came up, and then it's like, ooh, a new conflict, and it felt more relevant in some ways.
And it could
You know
also
what I
mean
mean?
perhaps I understand what Aarika means there, but I also think it could be the fact that the Ukraine and Russian war, it's almost feeling like a war where everyone's just digging in, and now there's mass trench warfare, and the positions have been relatively locked, which means that there's no really big news coming from the sides. There's of course if you think back to like 2024, I believe the Wagner Group was going to take over Russia. You can think back about these things, but then after that, when the media doesn't have anything to pick up on, they change what they want to show us.
Yeah.
And because they need the views, they need the money to keep going, and of course they need to keep going so people know what's going on in the world. But then also, what about these people that are still suffering? Like in Crimea, for example, that's been annexed for 11 years now. How about them? What do they feel like?
Yeah.
How do the children of the Ukraine feel when Russia came in and they eventually there was a war. I'm blanking here, but there was like a war criminal thing for Putin because he was taking kids from homes in Ukraine and then brainwashing them to Russian beliefs. What happens to those people? What happens to those families? Now the media just shifts, and there's like, of course, there's still backing, but there's just less backing.
Yeah, but the media also shifted a lot, especially once more with Israel-Gaza, because it's such a controversial topic. With Russia-Ukraine, I think majority agreed that Russia was in the wrong, Ukraine was in the right, Russia needs to stop. But with Israel-Gaza, there was a conflict there was still quite a bit of people who were supporting Israel instead of Gaza. There are still quite a lot of people. And then if you also look at it like historically with what's happened to Israelis, specifically Jews, then there's that whole controversy of them committing genocide when the biggest genocide of the 20th century was committed to them.
So it's like it makes it like almost like it
it's
brings
an irony.
everything in.
It's very ironic.
It just brings everything in, and then that brings in the global powers, and the global powers back different people, and then we see now states like most of the Commonwealth now recognizes Palestine as a free state. France also recognizes it as a free state, and then there's of course the U.S. which don't yet. And speaking of the U.S., the government's still shut down, so I'm not sure what their situation is right now.
Yeah, what is going on there?
So I think it's an interesting topic, and I think that we should have almost a bit of like a background on what's going on, how is it developing. Even if the media feels like people are not going to find it interesting, the people that are suffering.
But they have a duty to report what is going on, even though they don't think people will be interested. But they should still put it out. People will still care. They need to keep our interest in something so that we can care. And maybe once we do care, we can have a specific impact on it and we can be helpful.
And those people deserve that as well, I think.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on from a rather grim topic. Russia and China's strategic alignment. So Mikhail Mishustin, a Russian minister, visited China for high-level talks with President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Qiang, as Russia seeks deeper economic and technological ties with China amid Western sanctions. As everyone knows, China is booming with tech. All their tech cities are going rampant, and Russia is facing such harsh sanctions for the West, as I said before, that they're just looking for a trading partner and looking for a way out of this kind of...
out of their sanctions and their problems. This visit underscores a pivot by Russia towards China, signaling a shift in global alignment and the decreasing influence of Western frameworks in some regions. So, to our why it matters...
it speaks to the broader axis shifts theme as the West and Russia are at odds. Russia's turning to China, which is a significant strategic realignment, but we already knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was a bit confused why it didn't happen so much earlier. Like China, what isn't really fully still backing Russia now, even 3 years into the war in Ukraine. So I was surprised that this hasn't come earlier, but now maybe we'll see a shift in the region. Maybe China become more aggressive in the global diplomacy scene. We don't know, but this has some good implications. This will definitely implicate that the Russia and China want to strengthen their bond, and I'm not sure what the deal with the DPRK is going, but maybe they bring them into this, and there's
a new alliance.
Yeah.
But no, go back. But like, there's the clear like shift from West wait, okay, I need to rephrase this because I don't know how to say it. But like, it's always been, like in recent times, it's always been a more like Western-led world. But clearly from what's happening, it's shifting, like you said.
Yeah.
And this could mean more like global powers, or it's just going to shift to the east.
And then also, if we're looking, I'm going to bring up a map in a second. I'm going to fact check myself real quick. But I'm pretty sure that...
Map. What map are you?
Basically, recently, so I've just Googled it. I'm not sure if our editor will cut it out. But recently, the shift from the US, so Europe was before, not reliant, but their main trading partner was the US, now shifting towards China because of course, the US tariffs that Trump put in at the beginning of his term, that we mentioned previously in other episodes of our podcast.
Yeah.
But this means, are we actually seeing a fully shift to China's technology, China's way?
I mean, there's already been quite a dependence on Chinese tech because it's cheaper than US tech.
Yeah.
But it said that EU exports go to the US.
Yeah, and imports come from China.
Imports come from China.
We still don't we still don't know what these implications will be because it's really still short to tell. Trump has not been in office for that long yet, so we need to still see what happens in the future, and we'll talk about that, of course, as it develops.
Yeah.
Moving on to global economy, it's a bit under pressure. What's happening right now? So the economic outlooks for late 2025 show mounting headwinds, geopolitical tension, fragmented trade policies, supply chain disruptions, and exportation restrictions are all dragging global growth down. So critical minerals and supply chain issues, increasingly strategic, for example, deals between countries to secure materials that power technology and defense. So why does this matter? This isn't...
Well,
go ahead.
sorry. Well, this ties politics, economics, and security together. The world economy isn't just about markets; it's also about the power that each country has.
So this kind of asks us the question: even if you're not studying war diplomacy, your job prospects and finances are influenced by these power plays, which means that even if you don't want to be necessarily intertwined with politics, they do matter on how you live your life and how everyone's going to live their life in the future, which is unfortunate because not everyone wants to be associated with politics, as it can get very messy very fast.
Especially war, you don't want to be associated with any kind of conflict.
Yeah.
And then your everyday life is affected by whatever conflict is going on in the world.
And that's not necessarily your choice, which can be really frustrating for people. And it can also drive prices up, which also can frustrate people.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing right now in the New York mayoral race, between Zohran Mamdani and Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Lewa, that people are kind of fed up about prices. And when you have Zohran Mamdani, who kind of comes in and just proposes that he's going to freeze rent, a lot of Americans that were struggling kind of led towards him because they needed that kind of financial stability.
Yeah. But especially when there's a war, there's some political situation that's going on that you don't agree with, and especially when you don't support whatever war is going on, but then that affects your everyday life and your choices. It's not something you agreed to. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to be a part of this, but you're forced to be a part of it because of the way our world works and how governments and the economy and everything like that works.
It's not your choice, and that can really frustrate people because they don't want to be intertwined with this.
Yeah.
Moving on to our final point of the day.
Okay. There's the climate and humanitarian diplomacy, which is happening in Brazil, the COP30 prep. So what's happening is Brazil is gearing up for a major climate diplomacy efforts ahead of the COP30, emphasizing indigenous voices, conservation, economic constraints, and how climate action intersects with geopolitics.
So why does this matter? Climate is no longer just an environmental topic. It's now deeply political, tied to energy, security, development, global south versus global north, and migration. So global warming, yes, but also global power. Who leads it? Who pays? Who loses? So if we're thinking about this, we're asking ourselves, who wins out of getting climate change? It's of course going to be the people who have the oil fields, which is going to be like, if we're looking at it retrospectively, it's probably going to be the Middle East. They're gaining
Well, in short term, that's what they're gaining. That's their only advantage. But long term, there are no long term advantages.
Except for gaining a lot of capital from it. But then they're also.
Yeah, I see. I understand what you mean, but long term, in like the climate, like global warming kind of sense, and you know.
In the long-term global warming, of course, it's all bad because it's fossil fuel. Of course, it's just going to be burned, and then it's going to harm the planet even more. But if we're just speaking for,
and it's also a finite resource, so at one point they're all going to run out of it.
All going to run out of it, yeah. But for right now, I'm not sure the Middle East really cares about that because they kind of care about growing their mega cities, Dubai, Doha, whatever they want to build. And that's not really the best play because that's really harming. Who loses out of all of this is pretty much everyone else in the world.
Who's not benefiting from the capital of the global oil trade and all that.
Yeah.
So people like us,
we're getting harmed. Like, I mean, we can even see it like so drastically. Like the global warming in ski season, like
ski season. Oh my God, there's like barely any snow where there used to be snow.
In December, like around Christmas, especially where I ski in Porto, and like 5 years ago we used to always get snow, and now for the past like 2 years, like Christmas, it's been dry. I have a picture.
Yeah, as a kid, like, you grew up here, right?
Yeah, well, I grew up in
but there were like white Christmases.
Yeah,
there was snow during Christmas.
Like white Christmas is not in the mountains, but like
down here, yeah, exactly. Like Funan and all that. There were like proper white Christmases. Like there was snow, you could play and all that. But now we don't have that anymore. You want snow, you go to the mountains, and then it depends on what mountain you go to, because then there's not that much snow in certain peaks, and like the Jura, there's not that much snow in the Jura.
For example, like Saint-Serge, or Saint-Serge-la-Dole.
I used to ski there.
But then now you can't. Now you have to come up to above 1,700, but even at 1,600 where I ski, it's just so effective. So everyone is paying the price for the oil.
Now it's like Verbier-Germains, like those places. I don't want to go that far.
And everyone's paying the price for it for a very short-term capital gain or like long-term capital gain because they can. They're mega rich now from all the oil, but where everyone else is losing from it. They're the only ones that benefit from it because they can just do anything they really want with the money, and they can silence people, and we know cigarette companies have done that before in the past with the Supreme Court. So what's stopping them? And so I mean, this is just a big question that should be posed.
I also feel like global warming is not as talked as much as it used to be.
Yeah.
Remember when I was like 10, we always used to talk like global warming, CO2, you're gonna die.
SDG goals by 2030, and like not many of them have
2025.
And not many
5 more years. I feel like global warming is really just not talked about anymore, even though it's just like, it's like an impending doom. It's like coming closer and closer. Yeah. And I haven't heard any like solutions either.
No, it's like Greta Thunberg used to be like a big role model. Now I used to hear about her being arrested and trying to break the Israeli siege, which I mean, good for her. But now there's no one like really, because I remember a lot of people took after Greta Thunberg. They were like, oh my God, the 17-year-old is like showing us all these things. Well, I'm gonna adapt to that lifestyle. But now I feel like everyone's kind of like diverted back, and I think it's like also kind of the media is just not focusing on it anymore.
Yeah.
I think
it's like everyone's accepted what's gonna happen, but we shouldn't.
Yeah. There's no plan B. There's no plan B.
Because like, I guess the majority of the people who are currently in control, it's like adults, and they don't necessarily have to suffer with the consequences of this as much as our generation has to.
Generation after.
Yeah, our generation, the one after, and so on and so forth. But therefore, they don't seem to care as much as they used to. Yeah.
And that brings our episode to a close. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Tell us if you like the format. If you do, we'll keep doing it. And we'll catch you next week. Bye.